All right, this morning we are starting a series called Impact. And over the next few months, while Christian is away, we have the wonderful opportunity to teach each other. We're going to be hearing from a variety of different people about how the Bible has impacted and challenged and changed them. Because we all are impacted by something. Last weekend, my family got out to the West Coast, and this is a place that has impacted my family in many ways for many years. Sarah spent time there doing missions work as a teenager. We went there on our honeymoon. We take our kids camping there every single year, and we even started when Olivia was like 6 months old, which I both suggest and don't suggest taking a 6-month-old camping on the West Coast. It's an experience for sure, but that place represents like a place of rest and recovery and play and fun for us. As soon as I step out of the car and onto the beach, there's like this impact. There's like a deep impact, a deep breath. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's the coastal air, like a little bit fresher than over here. Maybe it's this vibrant green colors that are in the trees, or maybe it's just the good memories that I have associated with it. Whatever it is, it hits me and I find joy there all the time. It's like free counseling. Well, I guess minus the like cost of getting out there and eating and staying places. So maybe it's pretty expensive counseling, but it's still good. There's a book by Paul David Tripp called Everyday Gospel, and he talks about the reality of us being impacted all the time. He says this: everyone is being counseled by someone all the time. You may be counseled by your parents, a friend, or a mentor. In fact, you can't really have a relationship without the give and take of counseling. Perhaps you're being counseled by Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and you don't even know what a huge shaping influence they are having on your life. The counsel that we hear that captures our hearts and minds and that we allow to shape our identity, meaning, and purpose is very important for us to understand where it's coming from. One of the passages that really shaped me in many ways is found at the end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 7. And I know we just did a huge series on the Sermon on the Mount, so I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I'll get into some detail about it. But basically, the Sermon on the Mount is this super famous series of teaching that Jesus gave. And at the end of those great teachings, he doesn't finish off with a helpful acronym or a cute story to encourage us. He finishes off with a challenge. Almost like a bit of a warning to us. Before we get to that, I'm going to show you an image and just shout out what this image is. Yeah, Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? It's easy to recognize, and if you've seen this picture of it, you've probably seen pictures like this, right? There's a million of them, and they keep on getting better. People have gotten really creative how they pose with the Leaning Tower of Pisa, like this guy. Right? He's trying to kick it down. It's fantastic. Or this one. Ice cream cone? It's so good, right? And it's not just people, their pets get involved as well. It's awesome. And some of my favorite ones are ones like this, where it doesn't quite work out. He's so close, but then this guy is nice enough to ask the internet if anyone knows Photoshop to help him out, and we get this. And it's just so good, right? They're winning all over the place. And I'm sure most of us are aware that this tower was not originally created as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was created as the Tower of Pisa. The leaning part came later. It was not an intended part of its architecture. But because of the foundation that it was built on, something beneath the surface that we couldn't see wasn't right. In Matthew 7, Jesus addresses our personal foundation, the thing that is beneath the surface that maybe no one sees or has access to. Matthew 7, 24 and 25 says this: therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. When I was in Sunday school, I had a pretty basic idea about this passage. It was like, well, I better make good choices or else my life is going to crumble. And when I got to college, this was actually one of the first verses that we were taught about in the youth work program I was in, because of its importance and relationship to how we as humans operate. Now, I'll get back to it in a little bit, but I want to just geek out really quickly first before I get to the impact that this had on me. Because remember, this was like Jesus' greatest sermon of all time, and we see this therefore. And anytime we see these words that I've been teaching you, but actually puts them into practice, is a wise human. Something really cool about the book of Matthew is that it's divided into 5 literary blocks. Each block ends with a teaching, and each teaching ends with a phrase like, when Jesus had finished saying these things. Now, the 5 blocks of Matthew mirror the 5 blocks of the Torah. The Torah was Jesus' Bible that he would have used in that day, which is simply Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And the 5 teachings of Jesus here are actually mirror the 5 teachings of Moses in Deuteronomy. It's Matthew's brilliant way of saying that Jesus isn't just a good teacher. He is like the new Moses. He's leading a new Exodus. He's teaching a new Torah to a new Israel with a new kingdom. And throughout the sermon, we hear Jesus use the phrase put into practice. The Greek word here is poeia. It's a fun one. Try saying it. Poeia. Yeah, you got it. It's good. This word, it shows up 22 times in the Sermon on the Mount, and 10 of these times are just in the outro. It's translated as a number of different ways, but it basically means to practice them, does them, follows them, obeys them. You get the point. There's a running theme, and it's that it's not simply enough to hear all this information. It's not enough that all these people came out to a mountainside and heard Jesus. It's not enough to take notes, to memorize, to legitimately moved by it, and then doing nothing with it. Anyone else ever done this? I know I have. We have so much information that we've never had before. It could be bad news or bad information, and it hits us. It gets us right in the feels. It makes our heart hurt and our soul cry, and we go, oh man, someone has to do something about this. And then we go about our day, right? Or it's good news, and we go about our day. I heard a story of a pastor who preached a sermon. It was a great sermon. People told him that they were moved by it. And the next week he got up and he stood here and he preached the exact same sermon again. People are like, oh, you think he's okay? Is this okay? And they're like, well, we'll let it go. And the next week, the 3rd week, he comes up and he does the same thing. 4th week, same thing. 5th week, 6th week, same thing. And by this time, people are like getting a little concerned. The courage to tell him, he's like, are you ever going to preach anything else? And the pastor replies, I'll preach something different when we all start living out what I'm preaching now. So Christian's away for about 12 Sundays, give or take. So buckle up. You're going to get used to this. I'm joking. I'm not going to do that. But there's something there. There's something there. It's easy for us to struggle with an information surplus. We have plenty of insight. We have plenty of ideas. We have plenty of ambitions. But it's also just as easy for us to suffer with an obedience deficit. And that's the point that Jesus is getting to. He didn't say that we're wise if we read his words or study his words or get advanced degrees about his words or even preach his words. Jesus says the person is wise who hears these words and puts them into practice. When I was in college, one of the things that stuck out to me was this idea of the house, the home. Back then, the home was a really common metaphor for your life. And in Jesus' day, homes were significantly different. They were not single family. They would have been multi-generational. They weren't bought and sold as they are today. They would have been like ancestral. And they weren't just for rest and relaxation. Most people ran their businesses out of their homes. A home didn't just symbolize this place that you go at the end of the workday. It came to symbolize your whole life. And Jesus is saying that the wise person is the person who builds their entire life on the bedrock of Jesus' teachings. In ancient times, homes were not poured concrete foundation. People who would build homes would actually have to go and find places for them to go, to find pieces of solid ground. And this isn't an easy task. If you found actual bedrock, it was like a gem and you wanted to build your home there. Because when the rain came and the winds and the floods hit, it would then stand. And in the 1st century, floods were a real issue. Galilee was a really dry, arid place. There was valleys and ravines that caused pretty drastic flash floods. Augustine and others in the 4th century, they began using storms as the rain and the wind and the floods will come. Hard times will come our way. If anyone has ever told you that like being a Christian or going to church makes life easier, they kind of lied to you. In some ways, maybe possible, but most of us know all too well that hard times come. We can't escape that. And I would say it this way. Jesus isn't protection from the storm. He is protection in the storm. He is saying that your home, your life, if it's built on the solid rock of Jesus' teachings, the storm will still come, but you will stand through them. And some of those teachings that he's talking about to remind us in the Sermon on the Mount, this is what he's getting at. He's talking about what it looks like to have a really blessed life. He taught what it looks like to be salt and light in our world. He taught us not to hate or lust. He taught us to tell the truth and keep our commitments. He taught us to turn the other cheek when someone harms us. He taught us to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. He taught us to be generous. He taught us how to pray and fast. He taught us to store up treasures in heaven and not on earth. He taught us not to worry as much as we do and not to be judgmental. He taught us to ask and seek and knock after the presence of God. He taught us to take the narrow path and watch out for false teachers. And these verses that I just read earlier are like the culmination of everything that Jesus has been teaching in the past 3 chapters. And then he finishes his sermon in the most Jesus-y way ever. He says this, "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Jesus doesn't beat around the bush. He cuts right through the bush. And I love the fact that he's not contrasting good and bad people. He's contrasting wise and foolish people. Wise and foolish language isn't something new that he's kind of coining here or coming up with. It's straight out of the Hebrew wisdom tradition, out of Greek philosophy and the virtue ethics of the ancient Greco-Roman. And this was a very heated debate in the first century. But think about that for a sec. Can you imagine what it'd be like if Christian or I ended our sermon that way? Like how awkward, like just pretend this is me, right? Just imagine this is me. "But everyone who hears these words of mine, but does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Rains come down, streams rise, winds blow and beat against that house, and it falls with a great crash." Amen. Have a good day, guys. Right? Like that's intense. That's an intense way to finish a sermon. It's crazy that he would finish it with a crash for the person who builds their house on the sand. And yet I appreciate that he doesn't mention why they built their house on the sand. He doesn't say that they were really tired or fatigued. He didn't say that they had little kids and it wasn't a good season to take his teaching seriously. Or maybe it's because they preferred a different kind of life, or that they were just too busy right now. Maybe it's like, well, I'm going to have my fun now, and when I'm older, I'll take this teaching of Jesus seriously. Or maybe they just weren't convinced about his teachings. They had listened to it and they're like, me. It doesn't say why the person builds his house on the sand. It lets you imagine that part of the story for yourself. And here's the thing that's really interesting about it. At first, everything looks totally fine on a sandy foundation. Your house might be beautiful. You might enjoy the location. The neighbors are awesome, except for that one, but you complain about them with your other neighbors, so it's still okay. You have a wonderful garden. Your kids play with the neighbor kids wonderfully. On the surface, it might look great, but underneath, things might be different. And it's at this point that we should be asking ourselves, who is Jesus talking to? It's important to remember and ask yourself who Jesus is talking to from time to time, because he was talking to religious people. He was comparing wise and foolish people within the church community. John Stott sums it up like this: there are 2 types of believers. Both read the Bible, both go to church, both listen to sermons by Christian literature. The reason you can often not tell the difference between them is that the deep foundation of their lives are hidden from view. Jesus here reminds us that the most important thing about us, the thing that defines us, is often hidden from the view of others, which is counterintuitive because we live in this kind of showy, flashy, look at me type of culture. We put a lot of emphasis on what everyone can see about our lives. Jesus says the world might celebrate the grandeur of the house, but God knows the quality of the foundation. The reason this has impacted my life and ministry with young people so much is because something very, very important happens during adolescence. During adolescence, the human brain goes through this period of time where it gathers and takes everything it's learned or everything it hasn't learned. Everything it's learned or hasn't learned about God, about Christianity, about the Bible, about the teachings of Jesus, about spirituality and the church, and it does something with it. It makes it our own. It reconciles it, it concretes it into a foundation of who we are as a person. We take our parents' faith or lack of faith, and we figure out how to make that our own. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's such an important time in our life. And as parents, those of us that are parents, we give our children a toolbox. No matter what you do, you're giving them a toolbox. That toolbox might be filled with wisdom, sometimes it's not. And what I love about working with young people is that helping them lay a solid foundation is a team activity. It takes the work of parents, of friends. It takes the work of many people, parents, friends, youth leaders, mentors, and most of all of Jesus. In the past, I've shared about this verse before, and the youth will know this, that I used this story of a wonderfully horrible fishing trip that I went on with my dad. Everything that went wrong, everything that could go wrong, did go wrong. It took us 20 minutes to get the boat off the trailer. The keys were forgotten. I stood in the water for 30 minutes holding the boat. My dad got yelled at for leaving me in the water, a 12-year-old, when he went to get said forgotten keys. We ran out of gas. We only had one oar. We nearly crashed into rocks. We barely made it back, and we didn't catch any fish. It was awful trip. And I use this as an example of not being prepared when a storm hits, not obeying and following the rules of fishing. And obviously, since then, I've talked to my dad about this fantastic story, and he's horribly embarrassed by it. And he he says to me in his most dad voice ever, he's like, "You know, son." And what he said to me, he's like, "I didn't know anything about fishing." And after that, I spent a lot of time learning and practicing the proper way, which is true. Every other fishing trip I've been on with my dad has been very smooth. A few little hiccups. We don't always catch fish, but it's smooth and we're all safe. And the point is that our foundation has to start somewhere. We have to allow it space to concrete into something that'll help us weather the storms of life. Because storms come to both houses. It's the foundation that determines the outcome. The storms are different for all of us. Some of them show up really fast, and some of them slowly creep in over time. But the storms always come. A job loss or this deep anxiety that just won't go away. And there's so many other storms that we all battle. And as we wrap up, I want to bring us back to this image of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's beautiful. Oh, maybe I don't have it up there. That's all right. It's iconic, this Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's iconic. It's beautiful. It draws people from around the world, even if it wasn't supposed to look that way. And what I didn't realize until recently is that when the tower was built, it took 5 years to begin leaning. And just 1 inch, just an inch in 5 years. Imagine being that guy who's walking by just going wait a second. Keeps on going. You wouldn't really notice it. It wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was slow and gradual and almost unnoticeable. But something underneath the surface was shifting. Something was impacting the foundation. And here's the amazing part of this, is when they realized the problem, they didn't tear it down. They didn't cover it up. They didn't pretend it was fine. They got to work carefully, patiently, intentionally, digging into the foundation, making adjustments, adding counterweights to stabilize it. It's amazing what they did to make that tower still stand. And while the tower still leans, it's now secure. And maybe you feel like your life might have a bit of a lean sometimes. Maybe the storms have come and hit you hard. Or maybe you see one coming on the horizon and you're not sure if what you've built your life on is going to hold through that storm. Maybe you've been building on sand without realizing it, and now something's starting to shift. And the good news of Jesus, the good news of this passage, is that it's not too late to start fixing. It's not too late to start work on your foundation. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to pretend everything is fine. Jesus doesn't want us to just hear his words. He invites us to build our lives on them, to do something with what we have heard, to put them into practice. Our foundation is built on action. So I want to leave you with a question today, and that is simply, what is impacting your foundation? Because the storms come, and when they do, what you've built your life on will matter. So let's be a people who don't just hear Jesus' words, but live them. Let's be a people who build wisely. Let's be a people who stand through storms. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for your words and how they impact us. And we are excited to see and hear from other people this summer about how you have impacted and helped them. Thank you that you give us the teachings to try and build a life throws at us. In Jesus' name, amen.